Well, good morning to everyone joining us in person or virtually for Responsibility.org's launch of our newest program, The Wrong Side of the Road. So thank you all for joining us. My name is Darren Grondell. I am the Vice President of Government Relations and Traffic Safety for Responsibility.org, and I'm pleased to MC today's event. We are pleased and honored to be joined today by Representative Debbie Dingell, who represents the 12th District of Michigan. Her passionate dedication will lead to an end to drunk driving. Representative Dingell, thank you for joining us today live from Capitol Hill to tell us about your efforts.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I'm in a little room off where the caucus is meeting right now, but that's how important this was to me this morning. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to Responsibility.org for your advocacy and your continued leadership on preventing drunk and impaired driving. It is so important. I know you've got a lot of speakers here today, and I'm thankful to every one of their commitment as well, because this is such a critical topic that we need everyone to be working on together and to collaborating on. This is not a partisan issue. I'm here today to talk about the importance of preventing drunk driving. No community has been spared the pain and the suffering of loss at the hands of a drunk driver, including my own in Michigan. What has really spurred me is one particular family that I knew very well, but I've met so many families since I really dug in and decided that now is the time that we have to do something. And since I first introduced this legislation, my own community has seen numerous, unfortunately multiple, deadly drunk driving crashes again. So we've got to end this now. I first introduced the Halt Drunk Driving Act in 2019 after a family that I knew that had been very involved in my community, the Abbas family, was killed in a car crash by a drunk driver. The lives, I worked very closely with Rana, who has been my partner in all of this, her sister Rima, Rima's husband Issam, and their 3 children, Ali, Isabella, and Giselle, were all killed that night. And I was at the viewing, actually within the next day, with so many members of the community and family members, and a group of school children, 10, they were about 10, 12 years old, came up to me and said, technology exists, that it could have kept this from happening. Why have you not done something? We have lost our friends and will never be able to talk to them again. Why? Why have you not done something? So I haven't forgotten that. And I came back to Washington determined to do something because they're right. We need to take this seriously and ensure that no family ever goes through what the Abbas family has been through by incentivizing the development and implementation of technology to stop drunk driving. It's there, it exists. And we owe it to so many. I've met these families now since I've become engaged, families that have lost family members because someone irresponsibly got behind the wheel of a car after they had been drinking. The Halt Drunk Driving Act is a way that we can all work together to make drunk driving technology standard in every new vehicle. By installing this prevention technology in all vehicles, we can save almost 10,000 lives each year, 10,000 lives. But we gotta work to get it done now, to get it put into cars. And that's why this bill is included in the bipartisan infrastructure legislation, because we know solutions exist and we need federal policy to move them forward. So let me be really clear today. We have the tools and technology in our hands, these hands that can save lives. And it's time that we put it to use. We can't wait any longer to make our roads safer. I'm committed to continuing to work collaboratively with all of you here today, with the auto industry, with the federal regulators, to get them, actually the alcohol companies, the beer So many people want to work with us to get this policy right, so we can stop these preventable deaths and ensure these crashes don't yet impact another community. And there's also so much more that we can do in addition to investing in these technology. And that's why I'm so grateful to responsibility.org's leadership and partnership in this fight, especially through creating innovative strategies like the wrong side of the road to educate Americans and prevent them from driving impaired. Thank you to everybody that is here today for your strong advocacy to ensure more families aren't put in these tragic situations, and for your openness to discuss the harm of drunk driving and how we can prevent it. This issue matters to so many families, to so many people, and I look forward to really working with all of you to ensure safer roads for all. Thank you for caring enough to be here today.
Thank you, Representative Dingell, for your comments, your commitment, and your dedication to saving lives. You know, I've been in this business for the last 30 years in law enforcement, a state highway safety office director, and I will tell you, when you have to go to a next of kin notification and tell a family that their loved one's dead, it changes your soul forever. And so I appreciate the leadership on the Hill, being able to take issues like this and figuring ways how we can actually eliminate impaired driving from our roadways forever. And so thank you very much for your support and your leadership. For the past 30 years, Responsibility.org has worked to eliminate drunk driving, eliminate underage drinking, and to promote responsible alcohol consumption. That's part of our threefold mission. We are funded by Bacardi USA, Beam Suntory, Brown Forman, Campari Group, DIAGEO, Edrington, Mast Jägermeister US, Moet Hennessy USA, Old Smoky, Pernod Ricard USA, and William Grant & Sons. We want to say thank you to all of them for making our life-saving work possible. Responsibly.org surveyed Americans last month to learn about their perceptions on road safety. 2/3 of those surveyed felt as safe on the roads now as they did prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Our survey also showed that people overwhelmingly see impaired driving as very dangerous. This is kind of in contrast to some of the statistics last month that were released by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration that showed a historic 18.4% increase in traffic deaths in the first 6 months of 2021 as compared to the first 6 months of 2020. Unfortunately, we know that impaired driving has been a factor in the rise of traffic deaths. A 2020 NHTSA study of trauma center data showed that among seriously or fatally injured drivers, high blood alcohol concentration levels increased, as did the prevalence of cannabis. 1 in 4 drivers had a combination of substances in their system. Our survey results further reveal that although people understand the risks of impaired driving and feel educated on this topic, only 42% have talked to other people about this issue. Additionally, while most Americans report they have not ever driven while impaired, among those who have, a majority, or 57%, did not think they would get caught driving impaired. We need to change that perception. Today, we are pleased to launch our newest program, Wrong Side of the Road. I am honored to welcome Debra Crew to highlight her company's role in today's launch. Ms. Crew was appointed North America and Global Supply of DIAGEO in July of 2020. Previously, she held the role of non-executive director for DIAGEO. She has wide commercial experience across different consumer products and businesses, including in highly regulated markets. She served in various senior roles at PepsiCo and Kraft Foods, Nestle, and Mars, and is the former president and CEO of Reynolds American Incorporated. Debra is a graduate of the University of Denver, earned an MBA from the University of Chicago, and previously served as an officer in the United States Army. Debra, thank you for your service in the military and to our country and for being here today.
Thank you. And good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here in DC. A single crash caused by impaired driving is one too many, and it is completely preventable. And this is what brings us together. As an industry, it is our responsibility to create prevention tools that further educate people and create awareness while stigmatizing this irresponsible behavior. So on behalf of DIAGEO, I want to acknowledge everyone here today for your commitment to join forces in an effort to tackle the issue of impaired driving with the launch of Wrong Side of the Road. This interactive educational experience was developed in partnership by the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, UNITAR, and DIAGEO as part of an evolving approach that promotes changes in attitudes to tackle impaired driving to help save people's lives. It is a global program and supports DIAGEO's 10-year Responsibility and Sustainability Action Plan, what we call Society 2030, Spirit of Progress. We are committed to changing the attitudes toward impaired driving of 5 million drivers across the globe by 2030. And today, it's an honor for us to work with Responsibility.org, along with the industry, highway safety and law enforcement agencies, nonprofit organizations, other corporations, and our communities to stop impaired driving. I'd like to share more about DIAGEO's journey in this critical area. You know, as a company with a long-standing commitment to responsible consumption, DIAGEO has supported global initiatives aimed at reducing traffic deaths and improving road safety through a range of interventions, including partnerships with police, local authorities, and other agencies that support enforcement of impaired driving laws. One of those partners is UNITAR. In 2016, we began collaborating on a global flagship high-visibility enforcement training program to support government, authorities, and police officers in their work to reduce road traffic crashes that occur as a result of impaired driving. In North America, DIAGEO is no stranger to creating relationships to make a positive impact in society. We have long supported Responsibility.org's important initiatives and supported DISCUS's advocacy efforts for anti-impaired driving legislation. We've also joined forces with private sector partners to fund safe rides, designated drivers and free transportation, supported the enforcement and development of impaired driving laws, and introduced a virtual reality experience that puts consumers virtually in a fatal drunk driving crash to educate on the importance of responsible decision-making when drinking. We believe partnerships make us stronger and are essential in preventing impaired driving. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Debra. Appreciate your comments, your support, and your 10-year sustainability plan. It's not very often that you hear about a 10-year plan, so thank you very much for including that. Today, we are honored to have Congressman Chuck Fleischmann of the 3rd District of Tennessee and a member of the House Appropriations Committee. So I'll turn the time to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. May I do it from here?
You can stay right there.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. It's a great privilege to be with you all today. Before I give my formal remarks, I would like to acknowledge and thank my friend, Congressman Alan Wheat, for inviting me today. Alan, I see you back there. It's always a pleasure to be with you, sir. Thank you. I'm honored that I could join you all today, and I want to thank Responsibility.org for hosting this important event. I also want to thank my colleague, Debbie Dingell, who we heard from earlier, for participating in this program. Today's event reminds us that as Americans, there is much more that unites us than divides us. Last week, we learned that traffic deaths in the United States have skyrocketed. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration recently released preliminary data for the first 6 months in 2021 that showed an historic rise of 18.4%. That's an increase in traffic deaths compared to the same time frame in 2020, just 1 year ago. Some of the factors that led to this year's increase and increases in 2020 include speeding, failure to wear a seatbelt, impaired driving through alcohol, drugs, or a combination of both. As we move into the 2021 holiday and Christmas season, it is critical that we protect one another on the road. This year, as more Americans return to normal life, we expect to see more people on the roads traveling to see friends, family, relatives, and return to their holiday traditions put on hold by COVID. However, this is also a time of year when drunk driving typically increases, making the roads more dangerous. I am particularly concerned about the rising incidences of people driving with multiple substances in their system that impair their ability to drive. I applaud the launch of Wrong Side of the Road program. Far too many people who drive after drinking think they will not be caught. The 3 people who tell their stories in Wrong Side of the Road all had substance use disorders. None of them received DUIs the first time they drove impaired. It was a habit for them. That's true of most drunk drivers. The estimate is that people drive impaired about 80 times before they're ever caught. This new tool will help people understand the huge effect a DUI arrest or crash can have on a person's life. This is an important educational tool to help deter would-be drunk drivers. I urge everyone to remember that alcohol and drugs affect one's judgment, and they can give one a false sense of confidence. One with more alcohol in their drugs or their body can be impaired. It will impair one's judgment. Drunk drivers are often a lot more drunk than they realize. And after a long night of drinking, a person can still be dangerously impaired the morning after. It is important to expose the public to these types of true stories, as well as stories of drunk driving victims. Pairing these public education programs with high visibility enforcement will deter impaired driving and save lives. Once again, I want to thank responsibility.org for hosting today's event and congratulate everyone involved in the launch of Wrong Side of the Road program. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. We really appreciate your leadership and your support in this, and taking the time to be with us today. It means a lot, because this issue really needs leadership at the top in a variety of areas, so thank you. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Estrella Merlos, Global Head of the Road Safety Initiative for the United Nations Institute for Training and Research. Her experience includes more than 10 years in international affairs, public policy, and sustainable development with the United Nations, including executive experience leading a nonprofit organization. Thank you, Estrella, for your dedication to road safety and for joining us here today.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. It's a distinct honor on behalf of UNITAR to be here with all of you. And please allow me to acknowledge the members of the table, Honorable Congressman Charles Fleischmann, Mr. Chris Swonger, Madame Debra Crew, Honorable Judge Richard Vlavianos of the Superior Court of San Joaquin County, and Mr. David Whitesock. Thank you for being with us. Distinguished guests, it is my true pleasure to join you together with our partner DIAGEO on this occasion, and especially as we work on a critical issue such as road traffic crashes. We all know the statistics on fatalities and injuries. We know that each year approximately 1.3 million people die on the road. What is most striking is that road traffic crashes are the leading cause of death amongst young people aged between 15 and 29 years. Imagine the impact of this loss of life and limb on families and communities. I myself was a victim of a road traffic crash at a very early age, and I'm thankful that I can be here with you, and not only here, but also working on a daily basis on something that I cherish the most. In addition to a heavy burden on health, road traffic crashes trigger many negative externalities. For instance, road traffic crashes can also push victims and their families into poverty, as they lose members in the most active years of their lives. We also know the staggering loss estimates to GDP. As such, road safety is essentially a development issue and has been specifically addressed in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And a year ago, the United Nations General Assembly also proclaimed the period 2021-2030 as the second decade of action for road safety, with a global target to reduce road traffic deaths and injuries by 50% by 2030. Countries have been tasked with implementing policies and programs that will achieve these reductions. Last week, we presented a global plan to support the decade of action with the ambition to guide countries to implement their road safety strategies. Although it is a 10-year target, the implementation of the global plan and the achievements set for the decade will require a multidisciplinary, multi-sectoral approach with governments leading the way, civil society, international and national agencies, the private sector, academia, youth, and communities actively involved. Cooperation and collaboration are key elements in designing and implementing road safety interventions. We couldn't be more proud of the partnership with DIAGEO and with the industry to tackle this very issue. From a country-level perspective, greater cooperation among the different spheres of government is needed, from integrated road traffic systems to legislation to law enforcement, trauma management, and post-crash response. There is a need for integrated approaches to advance road safety. The private sector is making important investments to combat risk factors such as impaired and distracted driving, for example, and in designing road safety codes that are applicable to companies' operations. Collaboration with the private sector can certainly lead to the design and implementation of road safety interventions. Globally, collaboration and partnerships amongst international organizations and the UN system is essential to further increase the visibility of road safety in global discussions and to raise its profile as urgent development priority. Currently, many actors at national and international levels would agree that road safety is important, but don't necessarily see it as a priority that requires immediate and comprehensive action, as well as substantial funding. Broad institutional arrangements and multi-stakeholder partnerships are critical to develop innovative road safety interventions and implement them effectively. Given the still unacceptable high death toll and crash rates globally, the business as usual approach is not enough. There's an urgent need for a shift to reevaluate current practices and bring collaborative actions forward. As a dedicated training arm of the United Nations system, we at UNITAR have a clear mandate to enhance the effectiveness of country members of the UN through capacity building. We are pleased about the work we are doing in collaboration with partners such as DIAGEO and Responsibility.org to support countries in implementing practical solutions and concrete actions that will help reduce road traffic fatalities and injuries. With 2020 and 2021 being marked by the COVID-19 pandemic, we have remained committed, and I thank DIAGEO for that ongoing commitment to supporting knowledge sharing and encouraging systematic, recurrent, and result-oriented road safety interventions through collaboration. Wrong Side of the Road, jointly developed with DIAGEO, is an educational tool that aims to educate, to create awareness, and stigmatize impaired driving. The development of this tool is also in line with our strategic objective of optimizing the use of technologies to increase awareness about the risks of impaired driving while reaching a greater number of beneficiaries. Through this experience, we will learn about real stories, real people who were involved in a traffic crash while driving impaired. And I would like to here and now thank David for sharing your experience and your story. It is our hope that his testimony, as well as those from other participants of this project, contributes to educate users and, most importantly, contribute to prevent road traffic injuries and fatalities. Thank you, David. At the core of this joint initiative is fostering partnerships in support of road safety, building awareness, promoting education, and instilling a sense of responsibility. We look forward to bringing new learnings and tools, such as this one we launched today as we enter the second decade of action for road safety. I invite you to explore this tool and hope that you find it useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Estrella. It's kind of neat to be able to have not only worked at a state level, but now on a national level and now an international level, and to be involved in some programs that are affecting people's lives all over the globe. So thank you for being a part of this and allowing us to be a part of this. So thank you. I'd like to introduce Chris Swonger, who is our president and CEO of the Distilled Spirits Council of the United States and Responsibility.org. It's wonderful to have a leader as passionate and dedicated as Chris is to help us focus our efforts towards eliminating impaired driving. Sir?
Thank you, Darren, and hi, everyone. Welcome for being here. It's a little chilly this morning, but it's also a reminder that we're right around the holidays, and there is no doubt innocent people are going to die on our nation's roads over the next couple of months. Just going to the store and impaired driving is a significant factor in that regard. First and foremost, let me just say thank you to the Congressman and Debbie Dingell. DISCUS and Responsibility.org fully supports the HALT Act, and we hope it gets passed by Congress very, very soon. It's been a privilege for us to work with Mothers Against Drunk Driving and many in the traffic safety community to get the HALT Act passed. It could and will ultimately end impaired driving as we know it. So, but for today, we have to anticipate for the dangerous roads all of us are going to be driving on over the next couple of months. And as the Congressman mentioned and Darren mentioned as well, with NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety numbers, we've seen a dramatic increase, 18.4% increase in U.S. traffic deaths from January to June of this year. We're seeing an increased incidence of higher blood alcohol levels. Almost 2/3 of drivers in serious and fatal accidents have tested positive for at least one drug, including alcohol. 1 in 4 test positive from multi-categories of impaired substances. Thank you to DIAGEO and Debra Crew and DIAGEO's leadership, and on behalf of Responsibility.org, we're excited today to launch The Wrong Side of the Road, just in time for the holiday season. High visibility DUI enforcement initiatives are happening all over the country, and we appreciate and thank the traffic safety community and NHTSA and state safety offices. The Wrong Side of the Road campaign is a free, interactive educational experience created by the United Nations for training and research. So thank you, Estrella, for being here. She flew all the way in from Geneva last night, right? So thank you for being here. And it's been implemented globally over the past 10 years. In the U.S., the resources are going to be hosted by Responsibility.org. The campaign is about educating the public, raising awareness, and stigmatizing irresponsible behavior of high-risk drivers. Look, this is a team effort. It takes moms, dads, brothers, sisters, folks within the industry, bartenders, communities, to help people that have a problem with alcohol, no doubt, and substance abuse. It's an online interactive program targeted to 21 and 35-year-olds. The demographic that is really the highest for DUI crashes. It includes videos with drivers who have habitually drove impaired and were not involved in an alcohol-involved crash. Users ask increasingly raw questions about how someone could do this, how technology weaves recorded responses into the conversation. So it's a very engaging platform. It's a unique opportunity to look at the DUI driver in the eye. What were you thinking? How did you get caught up in this? People drive impaired 80 times before they ever get caught. The Wrong Side of the Road campaign will certainly complement the great leadership of Mothers Against Drunk Driving that tell direct victim stories. And Congresswoman Dingell was talking about the Abbas family. Wrong Side of the Road communicates an array of educational messages. There's no doubt one drink can affect your reaction time when driving a vehicle. It'll affect your coordination, it'll affect your vision. Small amounts may double reaction times. Alcohol does affect judgment. DUI drivers are often a lot more drunk than they realize. We have a lot of resources. URLs are in the media packets, responsibility.org's virtual bar app, lift safety commitment, rethinking drinking from the National Institute for Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism as well. We appreciate the media's interest in this story, and thank you for helping to share these messages. It's a team effort. Darren, back to you.
Thank you, sir. Now, with all of the kind of the setting of the stage, everything that's been set up, we'd like to now take a look at the Wrong Side of the Road program. I have a short little video teaser.
I lost nearly every friend that I had. Alcohol and vehicles just don't mix.
I didn't make it 3 minutes away from my house without colliding. Before I know it, the ambulance was there taking me to the hospital.
No one can handle drunk driving. You put yourself in not only harm's way for yourself, but also for others on the road.
Drinking and driving can end your life, somebody else's life, and your freedom forever.
So that's just a little short teaser. We'll have more to follow on that in just a few moments. But I'd like to introduce someone that's fighting on the front lines with us, and that's Judge Richard Vlavianos. He's been in this fight for many years, and we appreciate his support and leadership in this. And he is a presiding judge he was over the Jesse and Thomas stories that were featured in The Wrong Side of the Road. He is a judge in San Joaquin County in Superior Court of California and a regional judicial outreach liaison for the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Responsibility.org is grateful to have his advice as one of the original members of our Judicial Advisory Board. So, sir, turn it over to your honor.
Thank you, Darren, and thank you, Responsibility.org, for the privilege. It really has been an honor and a privilege for me to work with Responsibility.org as a volunteer, because they are taking just a leadership role in addressing this problem, and I've learned so much for that time. I'm especially proud of my guys that were on the video, and it's just an honor and privilege to work with the people, clients that come before the court and allow them to make that move forward, and then to see them be able to take the responsibility. It's very, very privileged. I've been a judge in San Joaquin County for 22 years. I was appointed last century. And I've been doing DUI cases for about 15 of those 20 years. So it is obviously something that's really important to me, and it's a job that I really like and I really enjoy for the most part, being able to do the work because of the ability we have really to make things better in this area more than anything else. It can be very bad on the bad side. I have seen the absolute devastation that's created by the collisions caused by impaired driving. I want you to imagine for a minute sitting up on a bench and in your courtroom, on one side of your courtroom, having a family who's lost someone, maybe the first person in the whole family to go to college, and the family is sitting there in grief and just looking at you somehow to try to make it better, but there's nothing you can do. It's a terrible, empty, powerless feeling. All you can do is listen. Type of thing. And then, after having that, you have to turn to the other side of the courtroom where you have the offender, and you have to listen to their family too. And then you have to do your job. You have kind of like a script of what the sentence is going to be, And the same hole that's in this heart over here, you're going to put in this heart over here. And it really hit me so significantly that this is a no-one-win scenario. This is everybody gets devastated scenario. And it's so preventable. I mean, it really is preventable by getting out there, doing education, engaging with people, and doing education, cooperating with people so that they understand. You can't command change in behaviors, even if you're a judge. You still can't command change in behavior. But you can work with people to understand and be able to make better decisions in terms of doing that. So with all I've learned from being on the think tank at responsibility.org and other places, we develop a program just to use accountability, monitoring and accountability to the judge, the parent, for behavior with repeat offenders. Data about 2/3 of DUI offenders never repeat. They're done one and done because they learn from the experience. But there's about 1/3 of them that wind up coming back to court. And that third is a very dangerous group. In California, because I'm a California judge, I can give you my numbers. Repeat offenders are only 1.43% of California's driving population. They're 24% of California's DUIs. 59% of the individuals involved in death and injury impaired driving collisions. So as that group comes back in front of us, this is the group that really needs to understand the behavior and is having a problem doing that. So courts can work with this population. In the program that we've started, every repeat offender in our largest jurisdiction gets monitoring for a whole year, accountability and responsibility and reporting back to the judge. And by doing that, we've actually got really long-term behavior change. Not only did we get a reduction in recidivism, but increased every year for 6 years. Because it's long-term change because we dealt with the thinking and the thought processes that allowed to that. So one of my worst events, for lack of a better phrase, is sitting up on that bench and being in that hearing that I described to you. One of the best parts about being a judge is having somebody come through at the end of that program and literally look at you and thank you for saving their lives and giving them back their family. And it's not a complex in terms of dealing with and just changing that thought process that allowed people to get there. So you just use monitoring, you use accountability. There'll be the testing if drugs are involved, monitoring for alcohol, referrals to programs where needed. You do all of that stuff, and then you just walk people forward. And I've been amazed. Sometimes people think just the system has to be a command kind of thing, and that doesn't really work. But as a judge, if you show somebody that you're willing to walk with them forward, you'll be amazed at what they will do for you. It's absolutely amazing what a great percentage of them are able to move forward. More than 80% of the people that have gone through my program have successfully completed. So it's huge, the percentage that will do it. And it's an opportunity to really, really, really make that big difference. So what we're doing with monitoring and accountability, what traditional DWI courts do with people who are high risk and high needs, in other words, they have chemically rewired themselves, that is so important in getting that change in terms of focusing on it. So I'm just really proud of my guys that are on the forum, and David for being on that forum. And the one thing I want to say, and I was talking to, it's the wrong side of the road is really the right approach. Because I've done a lot of work with kids in schools. We go almost every Friday, and before COVID, we were in school doing a program. And I can tell you the one thing they listen to. They don't listen to a judge. They don't listen to anger. They listen to stories of people who've been through it. And the stories of people who've been through it resonate. And it's no longer in a command thing. It's no longer you're telling kids what they have to do kind of scenario. It's you're working with them to help them understand. And when you have people who've been through it, tell them the stories about what happens and why they should do it. They have to listen to them. They have to listen to them. So one reason why I'm really happy to be here is it's just the perfect approach. It's the perfect approach in terms of getting people to think of things by engaging them and seeing every side. So I am very thrilled to be here and excited about the things that can be done if we put it through, and this is definitely a part of it. So thank you very much, and back to you, dear.
Thank you, Judge Vlavianos. I've been able to work with Judge Vlavianos for many years, and the innovative thinking, the changes that he's made in his courts, and the intentionality that has actually taken place. So thank you for being willing to step out on the ledge a little bit at times and challenging the process and really looking at how we can make a difference in people's lives at that level. I'm going to kind of ad-lib just for 1 second. My wife's a marriage and family therapist, and she always says to me, you can never have change in the shame place. So we oftentimes will try to, as an officer, oftentimes I'm like, you dirtbag, why are you in the back of my patrol car, so on and so forth. But what I really understood over time is these people have real issues and problems and challenges that we all have. And how do we help to get down into that piece? And so that really can help, I think, change. And I think that's what you've done in your court, is literally, how do we get past the surface, like that iceberg picture, and get down below and see, and how do we help get these people out of that constant repeat? And the reason I say that is last night we had dinner, and I had the distinct honor of being able to sit with David Whitesock. And we had a great conversation, and really looking about from his perspective, mine as a law enforcement perspective, and then I think with the judge, his perspective. But what a time to really come by and really look and see, how do we help change and help people themselves with the challenges that they face. David is one of our participants in the Wrong Side of the Road program. And I told him this last night, I'm just so grateful that you're part of this program. I'm so grateful that you had the courage, because some people don't want to talk about this. But you're willing to step out and kind of out of your comfort zone and really share with us, because as the judge said, peer-to-peer has a huge impact in people's lives. So David, thank you, and I'll turn the time to you.
Well, thank you, Darren, and thanks to the honorable speakers here. There was once a time you wouldn't see me sitting next to a judge or be anywhere near a law enforcement officer. But I'll explain a little more about that in a moment. I'm really privileged but incredibly fortunate to be here, given the significance that impaired driving has had on my life and the lives around me. I'll share a little bit of sort of my journey through my impaired driving, and then I also want to give you a glimpse of what happened after. And in fact, I'm really thrilled to hear the way that Judge Vlavianos talks about the humanity of bringing back to the courtroom, because if it wasn't for a judge in my case, I wouldn't be here with you today. So prior to 2005, I was a professional radio broadcaster. I'd been in that career for about a decade. And in that decade-long career of broadcasting, I was deeply addicted to alcohol and drugs. But I was highly functional in my job, of course, until I wasn't. And I struggled mightily with depression and anxiety, but thought radio was going to be my savior, that it was my purpose. And I'd get up every single day, and I would show up to do my job, interact with newsmakers and Congress people and CEOs and the thousands of people in my community. But I lived a miserable and isolating life. Large portions of my day, every day, went to planning how, when, and where I was going to drink that day. Usually, and this is about 90% of the time, meant spending nights in my car, driving around town, a small little town in North Dakota, and the rural eastern North Dakota country roads. My car was my refuge. It's where I went to face my fears, my anger, my pain, and my shame. But my car was also where I put a lot of people in danger every single day. Driving impaired is what I did. And despite blacking out and ending up in unknown towns and places, in cornfields, getting 5 DUIs over 8 years, slamming headfirst into an unoccupied parked car, and nearly drowning, I continue to drive impaired. I'll just pause in the nearly drowning because that's the story that we share in The Wrong Side of the Road. And I'll just give you a little context of that when you dive into it. As I was working in radio, the radio station was just outside of town. And if anybody knows anything about the Red River Valley of North Dakota and Minnesota, is you've got this large river, it floods a lot, it's flat, so all the snow melts and it goes straight into the river. Well, after 1997, the Army Corps of Engineers created a waffle grid system. And there were these large ditches, 12 to 15 feet deep, that would fill up in the spring. I was out calling a sports event the night before, drinking with all of my colleagues, and one of my colleagues said, "Do not be late tomorrow morning." I had to be on the air at 6 a.m. Saturday morning to relieve my colleague. She had a flight at 7:30. I was out till 3 in the morning. I woke up at 5:55 a.m. I got in the car and I raced to the studio. It was about 7 miles, and I had hit a gravel country road. If I went left, I ended up in the field. It was a straight shot. I went right, flipped my car into this ditch. It submerged, and I had to swim out. Fortunately for me, I tapped the electric windows. The windows went down, and I was able to swim out. So why? Why was I able to continue driving and driving impaired? Well, first of all, I didn't get caught much, just as we were hearing here. I knew the probabilities every time I got in my car. And when I did get caught, the penalties weren't very severe. There also was never any personal shame. Shame can have an effect, but in my own personal shame of the addiction, there was a culture of alcohol misuse and driving impaired where I lived. So every time I went out, everybody was driving home impaired. There was nobody in my circle having a conversation with me, because what would that mean? Holding the mirror up to themselves. So the other thing was that my decision-making, although impacted by my addiction, there are moments of clarity every single day. I knew what I was doing, but my better angels were outnumbered. So in 2005, I lost everything. I ended up in a small town of South Dakota in a jail and in a courtroom where in Winter, South Dakota, I was sentenced for a felony DUI. Judge Kathleen Trandle, she had to weigh the public safety along with the public health, and then for the very first time, the potential of me as a human being. And at the time, she had a new tool, twice daily breathalyzers. And she said in court, if I can just keep you sober long enough, you'll figure out a new path. So I sat in her jail for 5 months. I sat in a sober home for 6 months, and I did twice daily breathalyzers for 32 months. I decided to go back to school. I thought I was going to go back and get a journalism degree at the University of South Dakota, but I took a constitutional law class from a public defender, and that was Sandy McEwen, and she convinced me that maybe I should go be a lawyer. Of course, I told her no. She learned my story, and she said, "Don't waste your life. Don't go back into journalism." No offense to the National Press Club. Which is quite interesting to be here, not in the capacity of a member of the press. But she said I had to become a lawyer. And I got into law school. I earned a law degree and a master's degree, of course, because I have to prove everybody wrong. I passed the bar exam. And through the year-long process of proving my good moral character to the state bar and to the state Supreme Court, I was conditionally admitted. And then in 2013, I got to go back to that courtroom, to that judge, and Kathleen Trandle got to swear me in as a lawyer in the state of South Dakota. Now, as powerful and personally rewarding as my story is, and all of the destruction of the past and driving prepared and how I've overcome it, I know that most of my actions every single day were entirely preventable. The professional and the personal relationships didn't have to go the way they did, and the continued consequences didn't have to exist. So today I work in technology, I work in behavioral change and behavioral science and addiction. And the Wrong Side of the Road program is the most unique and imaginative approach to behavior change and decision-making for impaired driving. I'm proud and privileged and very fortunate to be part of this initiative and grateful to share my story alongside Thomas, Jesse, the judge, and many others in hopes that those will see themselves in these stories and make a bunch of better decisions. So thanks again to responsibility.org, to UNITAR and DIAGEO, and everybody here. I'm privileged to be here and thrilled that this commitment will have a lasting impact in reducing DUI crashes and deaths.
Thank you, David. I don't know how we continue on with the rest of the program, but I really want to say thank you for sharing your story and going from kind of the dip to the rise and seeing how people can get out, that there are success stories, and even though you've had challenges and issues in your life, you were able to find that way out. But what it also took was people around you to help you. And so I hope that through your stories and the Wrong Side of the Road program, as intended, will actually be able to help many others just like this in similar circumstances to find their way back to sobriety and choose not to drive impaired. So again, we had a great conversation last night. It was great to see this and how it all came together. So with that, I would now like to just kind of briefly show you the Wrong Side of the Road program highlights. And you can access the program on our webpage at www.responsibility.org/wrong side of the road, all together, no spaces. So over here, we're going to show you a couple of some slides here so we can kind of highlight this and demo some of it for you. So when you go into the Wrong Side of the Road, you can then click on the link that says Understand the Impact. On the right side, you will see what happens after you make the decision to drive impaired. Click, and then you'll find out. Next, you will see Before We Begin, where you will need to answer a few basic questions regarding age, gender identification. The data is completely anonymous. Then next, you will be asked to mark your level of agreement with 3 short statements. It is very important to respond before and then after you watch each of the videos. You'll have each video, watch that, and then respond to these questions. Because we'll be measuring attitudinal changes among people who use the program. And this data will help us to measure the program's effectiveness. Now, the first statement, as you see, I fully understand the dangers of impaired driving. And then marking one of the appropriate spots there, either from strongly agree all the way to strongly agree. The second statement is, I believe it is safe to drive after just 1 drink. That's a great question. Can it be? And then again, you will then mark the appropriate response from strongly agree to, or actually strongly disagree to strongly agree. The third statement is, I fully understand the impact impaired driving can have on people's lives. You will mark whether you strongly agree all the way up to, or I should say, strongly disagree to strongly agree. One of those responses there. Once you're done there, you'll click on the button in the lower right-hand corner that says, Go to Stories. Each story takes about 5 minutes to listen to as you choose various questions to ask. And you can listen to all stories or just one. You have the option. After you finish listening to the story, you will be asked if you are more or less likely to drink and drive after taking part in this experience. You'll also be asked if you think this was a good way to learn about drinking and driving. Then you'll be asked to respond to the 3 statements posted to you at the outset to measure attitudinal change. As I said, it's important to take a moment to answer these questions, which will help guide us on the effectiveness of the program and any changes we need to make over the 10-year implementation period. So this isn't just a one and done, just kind of a turnout, but this has an impact we want to see what happens over the next 10 years as far as this implementation. In all, it should take you about 6 minutes per story. As we close today's program, I would like to remind you of 5 ways to stop impaired driving, actions you can take every day. One is visit responsibility.org/wrong side of the road, watch the videos and answer the questions, and share the program with others. As noted in the survey that we mentioned at the beginning of this program, only 42% of people were actually talking to their friends. So This is something that can be a conversation starter, something to discuss. As David said, no one was talking to him about it. Not that you have to, but it's just one of those ways that we can have an impact on others about thinking about what they're doing. If you drink alcohol, don't drive. Plan your night in advance. Decide how to get home safely, especially with the holidays coming up, is plan your night out. Agree on a designated driver who will not drink. One of these things you could do is call a friend. Lyft, Uber, Honest, or even public transport. Speak up and act if you see someone about to drive impaired. It says to stop them. Now, I know we always have a concern about trying to stop people and accost them and holding them down so you're not going to drive. But finding ways to actually communicate with them to say, don't drink and drive. It's important to intervene because I have seen over my career that interventions can save lives. I would like to conclude our program today by thanking our members who provided the funding to help us accomplish our goals. I also want to thank our corporate partners, many who are present today, both in person and online, so thank you. And I'd also like to thank our esteemed panel today, all of you that were here sharing your thoughts, your ideas, your commitment, and your leadership. So thank you very much. And now I would be happy to take any questions for our panel. We did a great job. We were awesome. We do have a few minutes if you have any questions or thoughts that you'd like to share. Okay. If not, thank you for joining us today, and please visit the Wrong Side of the Road, our link, and share the program with others. Once again, that peer-to-peer has a huge impact. So, and together, we can eliminate impaired driving on our roadways. So thank you very much. Thank you, and that will conclude today's program. Thank you, Jack. Thank you.